What's good YouTube? Welcome to my channel, Last and Conditioning. Scientific Snitch is wrong about bulking. She has made a video about how bulking is supposedly dead or that you shouldn't do it and try to explain some reasons why by using research paper. There is a couple of issues by using research paper in this particular instance. One major problem really is that most people cannot really focus on the nutrition that controlled as they will be actually forced to in a study. When you participate in a study with this type of thing, you will be giving a certain amount of food and calories, and you will be watched that you are actually eating what you're going to report. Now, we know for people who work with health, we know that people tend to either overestimate or underestimate. What that simply means, people who tend to overestimate how much they're eating, that will typically be people on the skinnier side. They will typically over-report that they're actually eating so much more than they actually are. They will be like, oh, I'm eating 8,000 calories. And when you ask them to list what they're eating, and a whole day it gets to like 1,000, like maybe mid-1,000 calories. But in their mind, it's so much food that they genuinely believe that they're bulking, but they're starving. And the opposite also rings true when we're taking people who are very overweight into account. They will say, oh, I don't eat that much in a single day. Because here's the thing, they will look at the food, not snacks, the food, just the food, and be like, oh, I don't eat that much food. And that's true. You probably don't eat that much food. Like that's maybe 20%. But then the cookies, the ice cream, whatever, is not really taken into account because it's not really food. Like cookies and chips, chocolate is not food. So in their mind, they're not eating that much food, which is essentially correct. But calories are calories. It doesn't matter if you eat 10,000 calories from chocolate or 10,000 calories from carrots, it's still 10,000 calories. Now, this is a hyper extreme example of that because no one's really going to eat 10,000 calories of carrots. Like, you would probably die because of the amount of food volume. But that's just to paint a picture. Now, so that's really one of the big problems when we look at this in these particular studies, because it is hyper controlled. And people do not live hyper controlled life. So when people are trying to gain muscle mass or they're thinking they're bulking and they're actually not really bulking, it also makes it extremely difficult to know how much of a surplus that you're actually in versus are they in a deficit or they're just maintaining and they're just slowly building muscle mass in that way. It's very difficult to know because most people, I would say probably like 90% or 99% of people can realistically not really know how much they're really taking in. And they're not going to be that meticulous about the foods that they're eating. Most people want to have some sort of change in their daily nutrition. They are not going to want to eat the same 5 foods, on repeat day in and day out. But this is the thing. People like Revival Fitness that does bulking, he will eat the same foods when he's bulking or when he's cutting. He will literally just adjust the amount. And most people are not going to be able to do that. So that's really a major problem. And this is also why Revival Fitness talks about when he bulks. He doesn't use the bulk as an excuse to pig out and go to Wendy's or McDonald's or all this sorts of stuff. He does the same thing, just a little bit more or a little bit less. It's just the volume of it, but it's the same foods. So that's really a major problem. And a lot of people, when they bulk, especially when they do a dirty bulk, they will use the excuse that, oh, I'm bulking, to just, pig out, essentially. Or people will say, like, oh, I'm lean bulking, but if we actually, track the weight properly and track the nutrition as a whole, we will actually see that you're basically eating at a maintenance, and that's also why that the weight is not really increasing, or it's increasing at an extremely slow, painful pace. And this is a major problem. We talk about why bulking works or doesn't work. And this is also why someone like Scientific Snitch is completely wrong about bulking. We cannot just use scientific papers to say it works or doesn't work. Another problem also is, when we're talking about studies in these sort of particular instances, is simply that if you have people who are extremely undertrained really, and the moment they start training and they actually start eating food, they will naturally just gain muscle mass. And it oftentimes will also be people who doesn't really have that much training experience in the first place. You are going to be really hard to find people who have 5 or even 10 years of training experience participating in these sorts of studies and doing a bulk versus doing a maintenance intake of calories. You're not going to find that. Why? Because people who are advanced in their training, or maybe even athletes, they're not going to participate in these sorts of things because they already know and have tried to see what works and what doesn't work. They're not going to go into a study to see if some nerds can essentially prove or disprove some sort of theory. They have their own experiences, and some of them may even coach people, and they can see actively in the real world that it works. And this is why scientific snitch is wrong about bulking.